Christina Abbott started out learning to play her dad's old acoustic guitar at the age of 15. At 18, she started playing open mic nights, and it was then that she was inspired by urban folk and jazz legend KJ Denhert. That same year, she also opened up for 80s pop star Debbie Gibson and toured the country for a little while. Over the years, Christina has played under different monikers and projects, such as the Karner Blues, a folk duo with Jennifer Dauphinais of Ponybird, as a solo artist, Cea Marie, and formed a folktronica project called Hot Bitch Arsenal. They went on to garner a niche following, were featured on NPR, and opened for Kaki King at the Paradise Lounge in Boston. Hello, Christina, and welcome to the New Music Alliance Radio Hour.
Thank you for having me. Very happy to be here.
We're starting off our show this week with your song, Everybody Wants to Live Here, but Nobody Sticks Around.
That's right. Ain't that the way, always?
It's funny. I came up with all the songs in the playlist, and after I created the playlist, I noticed there was a theme going here, and your song ties them all together. Many of them.
Nice.
I love it when a songwriter comes up with clever ways to tell a story rather than just kind of write as if you're sending a letter to Santa or something. Instead of singing that you're driving around in your car, you replaced car with metal machine.
Mm-hmm.
Do you make this conscious effort to do this in your songs to make them more interesting?
I do. I've always been a sort of a storyteller first, and just love poetry and writing, and I just love the way that words come together, sound. They all sort of have their own feeling. So it's like, when I thought of that, and that was the first lyric that I thought of for that song, is just drove around in my metal machine. And it's just like, it just kind of came to me that way. And yeah, it's something that I do a lot in my songwriting. And I would say that, I'm not the world's greatest guitarist. I'm not the world's greatest vocalist, but I really enjoy writing, and it's nice to have, the other outlets to have those written words sort of come out. And I always love telling a story. So yeah, it's something that I do a lot. It's sort of unconsciously though. It's just how I describe things. And I'm a pretty abstract thinker. So I work in human resources, which is hilarious. But I'm the strangest, most abstract HR person around. And sometimes when I'm having a conversation, it's like it's hard for me to kind of digest and focus sometimes. But songwriting has always helped me do that. And it's helped me in my kind of 9-to-5 job as well, is just to be succinct and to paint a picture and to tell a story in a few minutes, and kind of edit what's going on in my head, but just to evoke sort of an emotion. And yeah.
You paint a beautiful story.
Cool.
You started off pretty young, you started playing guitar around the age of 15, and then started playing at open mics at age 18. And you were inspired by urban folk and jazz legend KJ Denhert. Can you tell me a little bit about KJ?
Yes. So she's really big in, she does a lot of the Dar Williams songwriting retreats, and plays a ton regularly at the 55 bar down in New York City. And she is just one of the most vibrant, soulful people that I've ever seen live. And when I was 18, I started playing at the now defunct Common Sense Cafe, which was in Portchester, New York. I believe it was run by CJ Masterson and his wife. And it was this little coffee shop. And I just started playing the open mics. And it was such a welcoming, great atmosphere. And that's where I met KJ. And KJ really, she was one of my biggest inspirations, because she was like, you know what, you got something. And for someone like her to say that to someone like me, and I see her, and I mean, she was like my in the Matrix, there's like the Oracle. She reminds me of the Oracle. She's like the music Oracle to me. And she was one of my biggest influences, and still, honestly, and still is to this day. And when I was 18, she said, you got something, and really made me think that I could kind of do it. And so I just kind of kept going with it. But um, to this day, she's still gigging and still performing and still writing. And I just cite her as one of my biggest influences. And honestly, I mean, a lot of, there's always the big name sort of famous influences that people have. But a lot of my biggest influences have been the people that I've met just, in Connecticut and in the Northeast that have really inspired me to keep going or try something different or think outside the box.
You've listed some pretty impressive influences like D'Angelo, Martin Sexton, Charles Bradley, and Amy Mann.
Mm-hmm.
Very, pretty diverse and pretty inspiring. But have you ever reached out to any of those to collaborate, or?
I have not. I have seen all of them. Well, not all of them live. Charles Bradley, I just sort of stumbled into kind of late in the game, but he was this guy who was like sort of this James Brown impersonator.
Yes.
But when I heard his music for the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, like he, had I mean, he really talk about soul coming from somebody. And I also share a birthday with him November 5th. So that's why I was like, that's like my dude. And I feel like he was just sort of, he kind of started getting noticed late in the game. I think he was in his 60s and had some really good production around his songs, and then wound up passing away not that long ago. And I just find it just goes to show, like, you don't have to have this long storied sort of career to have meant something or to be impactful. Like it doesn't take away from the fact that like to me, he's one of the most influential singers and performers, but didn't enjoy that long of a ride into fame and stardom. And he was always very much himself. I mean, his whole story of his life is incredibly powerful, and that's where it's at for me. It's like he did it because he loved it, and he did it because it lived in him. And that's sort of how I view music. It's like I can put on these other suits of like, HR director and all these things. And but where my heart is at and the way that I touch people, I think, in the way that I best communicate with the world and with source and with others is through music. And I've really, in the pandemic and whatnot, I really missed that. I really, really missed that. I started doing shows again up in this area where I live right before the pandemic. And then that all kind of shut things down. And I just yearn for that type of connection again and doing what I love. And there was a good period of time where, I sort of got burnt out in in doing music, and kind of, I didn't want to, it's like, I think everything that came with it took away the joy of doing it for me. And, bands that broke up and people being like, oh, you should do this, and being influenced in things that and in ways that I really didn't want to be, and losing my own voice and path for a while. Just really kind of took me away from that. But it's always been there, simmering. And I just, it's always a journey. We're all on this journey. And who's to say that I can't, come back and re-record and find all my old stuff and release things the way that I want to finally. So that's sort of that's my goal.
Good goal. I noticed that you've performed under different monikers and sometimes performed the same songs and given it like a new life in a different style.
Yeah.
With all those different personalities, and different styles of music, do you have like multiple personalities when you're performing?
I would say I was always quintessentially Christina Abbott when I was performing, but in singing in different styles, and especially with this sort of folktronica project that I did and learning how to like manipulate machines and looping and all that stuff, it really just gave my voice and my songwriting um, just different angles to play with. And I love sort of playing around on music, even though some of my stuff feels pretty heavy and serious. There's always like this kind of like tongue in cheek, like a little bit, there's always a little satire and stuff. And exploring my music via sort of different soundscapes, I think just really enriched, I don't know, it made it sort of fun. And I do feel in some ways like, I think some days we're all sort of different personas, even though at our core we're still that same person. So at the root of it, I was still writing songs and lyrics and performing, but maybe an inflection that I would give my voice, or the levels that I would perform at, and would be kind of different. And it was good for my brain too to look at music sort of differently. And I mean, even me as a person, it's like I'm a pretty diverse person. My dad was not born in the United States. He's from St. Vincent, which is this tiny island in the Grenadines and the Caribbean, and came here when he was 18. And my mom lived in Connecticut. And I have a diverse sort of background. And so of course I'm going to want to, with music, it's sort of the same thing. So I really appreciate pretty much all types of music, even though at my core and who I am first and foremost, I think, is a songwriter.
I love hearing the different styles. Like, I think everything is bite sized. You've done in a couple different ways, and when you're doing it acoustically solo, like I can focus on the lyrics more versus when you're doing it as the duo HBA.
Hmm.
Focused a lot on the beat and the sultriness of it. What is it? NPR that kind of dubbed it Sultronica.
Hmm. Yes.
I love it. It's definitely very sultry. Oh, you opened up for Debbie Gibson.
I
Was that
did.
before she became an icon or popular back then?
No. It was after, I would say it was maybe 1999, maybe 2000. So before I was at the Common Sense, I started doing shows at the Arch Street Teen Center, which was down in Greenwich, Connecticut. Um, and Debbie Gibson was going to roll on through and do a performance. And I also played, because for some reason she wasn't able to play on the public access like channel to promote her show. So they asked me to do it, which was just very bizarre. I think I have the video. I'm in my basement right now. I have the video of that somewhere, the VHS recording of it. So I'm going to upload that to my YouTube channel so you can see it.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I opened for Debbie Gibson, the 1980s pop icon. She was very nice. I think her mom was like her manager at the time, and it was very cool. I think she went on to do that movie like Sharknado or something like that.
Oh my. Past her heyday, I guess.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Back to some of your lyrics that I really love. When I first listened to A Big Old Sky, I'm just a product of two people's bad luck. I think many people can relate to that. And you're quite the wordsmith, I hear. What do you call that kind of bittersweet irony?
Yeah, it is. It's just like, yeah, I would call that bittersweet irony. And, all my songs just sort of have this twinge of, I don't know, even if it's a lighthearted song, like there was a song called High Fructose, and it's the like, and I did this with HBA, and I did this in 2019, and I'll send you the recording of it. But it's this very like, sort of poppy, like summery beats going on. I'm doing a nice little like kind of fun little beat with my guitar. It's very uplifting. And the first thing that I'm saying is it's the breakdown phase, it's the reckoning, nobody panic. It's like, so I really, and I just wind up doing it, but I sort of talk about dark subject matter sometimes, or like, not so warm and fuzzy lyrics, but couched with sort of warm and fuzzy sounds. So, and I think maybe I do it because I always feel like, I don't know, I'm always this sort of like duality of a person walking around where, sometimes it's like, well, how could I feel this way if I'm acting this way? But then eventually I'm like, you know what? Then that's just who I am. And if I can't reconcile it perfectly, then like, aren't we all kind of like dualities walking around sometimes? So I think sometimes that's reflected in my music as well. I'm very introspective, I would say. And a lot of songs, um, I'm able to write about like sort of tricky times or kind of tricky subject matter when I'm at a place where I'm able to better reflect on it and not necessarily like in the moment. And then I sort of give that emotion or that feeling or that moment it's due via a song. So it's very cathartic for me.
Good. Many songwriters say the same thing.
Yeah.
I learned about you through Jennifer Dauphinais, and you've performed with her.
I
And I
did.
asked her she is on the Essential Western New England Songbook, and I asked her who she would recommend, and she named off some people like James Velvet. Who would you recommend to be on the Essential Western New England Songbook? That's from
Mm.
southern Vermont down through western Massachusetts into Connecticut.
Hmm. I would say a lot of the people that I met, well, I mean, I'd nominate Jen, but she's there already. And it's been a pleasure being one of her biggest supporters, seeing her grow over the years, and now she's just like absolutely killing it. And I love the fact that we're able to call each other very close friends and have someone who isn't, there's ego always involved, but it with her and I, it's just like straight up love and support, and we want everybody to win, and we want everybody to who does it because they do it for their heart and for others. Like we're very supportive of that, and she's been one of my biggest supporters, and I'm one of her biggest supporters. I would say some of the folks that um so I don't know if you ever heard of Darian Cunning, but he
No.
was in pretty big in the Bridgeport, Connecticut black rock scene, still doing a lot of stuff, does stuff for a lot of other bands. He did things for Cosmic Kibaros and Deep Banana Blackout and all these other places. But he was someone when I was sort of in the black rock Bridgeport scene in the early 2000s, he was there too. And we actually were roommates for a period of time. And he is one of the most, prolific, inspirational songwriters. He can play guitar like nobody else. He can produce like nobody else. And he's just straight up raw talent. And I think his album got released finally. It's called the Lost and Found Channel. But seeing him live is really something else, and he's one of the best songwriters I've ever had the experience of performing alongside of and watching, perform. Darian Cunning.
I will definitely look up Darian.
Mhm,
Thank you.
mhm.
All right, we have just a little bit of time. Do you want to play a quick game?
Yeah.
I don't know if Jennifer told you I played the game with her. It's called Lyrical Ponderings. I'll
Okay,
give you a song title that's in the form of a question, kind of like "What Is Love" by Hathaway.
okay,
You can either tell me who sang the song or answer the question.
okay, I'll probably fail, but yes. I'll
Give me
probably
an
fail all of it, but sure.
Pick a number between 1 and 200.
Ooh, okay. How about the good old 33?
I'm looking right at 33 when you said that.
Stop!
Okay, here we go. How much is that doggy in the window?
The one with the waggly tail? Who sang that though?
Exactly.
Jeez. No idea.
All right, you're gonna have to answer the question then.
Okay, I'm ready. How much is the dog in the window? Is that the question?
Yeah.
If the doggy is in the how much is the doggy in the window? I would say leave the window, go to your local humane society, and get that doggy instead.
There you go. Great answer. That was Patty Page who said, "How much is that doggy in the window?"
Excellent. Things I never knew. Now I'm going to look up Patty Page.
Very good. Thank you, Christina. Absolutely love your music, and hopefully see you live someday.
Yes, I would love that. And this was very awesome. And I'm sure we'll be talking soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.